To better tell you about my story, I thought that I would read you some of the book that I wrote later on after Austin had died. It was a testimony to how God had worked in my life, and it just kind of sums up a bit better than I wrote it, so it's maybe a bit easier to get a grasp of where I've come from. Despite my failings, could have been better bits, I thought I'd done a good job. I'd raised a young man who was much better than I was in all walks of life, and yet he killed himself because he hated living, and I didn't even get a hint of it coming. I thought we were close. I thought I knew my son. Although 19 years old, Austin and I still got silly, had stupid dance-offs at random nonsensical times, watched movies together, attempted co-op games, but I was too rubbish and he was always the carrier or the one that was still alive. And we made fun of each other's cats. His was Ginger Nuts and mine was Rat. We probably had a different bond compared to other mothers and sons, but ours was fun and loving all the same. Austin wasn't just my child, he was also my friend. I shared a lot with him, and he saw all of my good parts and probably all of my worst. I'd even gone to his work do with him. He'd beaten me just at small ball shooting. We'd played some intense table tennis 1v1, and then we ditched the party early as Austin wanted to go home. We'd walked around the corner to an Indian restaurant that we liked, had dinner and caught a taxi. He had ordered his usual butter chicken, garlic naan, and a chocolate milkshake. I'd had the fish curry, shared the naan, and had a fizzy drink. I'll probably never go back there or to many other places that hold special memories of Austin. In fact, there are a lot of never agains now. Whether it is fair or not, I don't care. It doesn't seem right to enjoy or do certain things anymore, not when my baby is buried and can't do them with us. My family attempted our first Christmas without him, and that'll be the last. I gave my few presents out early, so I didn't have to be in the lounge, imagining where Austin would sit as he unwrapped his, as if he was still around to open any. Next time we'll probably just go sleep on his grave and wish the day away. And I've sidetracked already. An easy thing to do when I think about how things played out. But we also talked, Austin and I, about all sorts of things. We'd even talked about suicide, heaven, and all of that. But obviously we didn't talk enough, because Austin never told me or indicated that he was feeling a certain type of way. He listened to other people's problems, but never offloaded his. Or maybe I was blind to it. He snuck out of the house early one morning, 20th of August 2024 to be exact, as the rest of us slept, and drove his car to the train bridge, filled a bag with rocks, cable-tied his hands and feet, then went over the side to drown in the Whanganui River. I'm just going to skip to another section. So I had come home from an online grocery pickup, and his boss had rung me and said Austin hadn't arrived at work, and I looked and his car was gone. Searched the house, was ringing him, he wasn't answering, which was very unusual for him. It went straight to voicemail, and I thought something isn't right here. So I waited till 5:36, got hold of his friends. They hadn't heard of Austin, but a strange message had been sent to somebody when they looked into it for me. And so I went to the police station, filed a report, and unable to sit still, I picked up Austin's Oma and we just drove around Wanganui for hours trying to find him. I left his Oma's house, and I couldn't come home. It was quite late. It was just before midnight, I think. And then I had remembered a story, back to my book, I'd watched online somewhere. A boy had died. He had drowned in the sea, and the adults were freaking out, trying to resuscitate him on the sand, but he was dead. And in the chaos, the adults heard singing, and it was his sister, and she was singing "Praise You in the Storm." And it was her faith that brought her brother back to life. So I started flicking through the songs on my USB and found a Christian song. And crying my eyes out, I prayed to God and I sang. And as I was doing that, my phone rang, and it was Nathaniel. And I didn't realise, but Seth and Nathaniel had jumped in their car and driven up from Wellington when I had called them. He asked what Austin's number plate was. I didn't even know they were back in Wanganui. I gave it to him. "We found his car," he said. "Where are you?" I asked. "At the train bridge." And this was just the start of God stepping in and being there. It was as soon as I turned to worship and praying and seeking Him, He revealed to me where my son was pretty much straight away, and I'd been looking for him for hours. And that was just really the beginning of it all. They recovered my son's body from the river 2 days later. They thought he would be washed out because the current and the weather we'd been having. But I had a weird calm that God would give him back to me so I could bury him. And I had all my faith in him. In this crappy, horrible time, I had all my faith in him, and he just kept smoothing everything out. My friend Janet, who was helping search the river, said at one point I walked over the bridge and I said we weren't going to find him. We weren't going to find him along the river. And I pointed into the water and I said he's still there. And she said to me later that she remembered thinking she was really worried that we'd never find his body and that I would have to deal with that. But 2 days later, the police divers could go in and they found his body pretty fast. He hadn't moved far from the bridge because he was so heavy. Not just that, he had to be taken over to Palmerston, to the morgue, to get an examination, which I was quite upset about because I didn't want them cutting up my son's body on top of already losing him. We got there on Friday and we were told that the coroner had been away for a week and there was like a massive backlog of people's bodies to be done. And so they weren't too hopeful that we would get Austin home soon. But God moved in again, and this coroner turned up on Saturday morning, first thing, just to do Austin. So God just bumped him right up the list. She came in, she did him, and we had him back in Wanganui by Saturday. And it's just all of the little things. He just took it all. He just carried it all, did all the jobs. And I just kind of drifted amongst it, but I was covered. So sorry. I've watched my other video before and I realised how much I was sniffing and it's disgusting. Oh, you did. This is it. And in other videos I might go on about more of the stuff that he's done, which was a lot. He helped me find where to bury my son. He had introduced me. I'd become friends with a gravestone designer maybe like a month or so before Austin died, and we got along like a house on fire. And there's just all these small things. Like, I was quite specific about a headstone which I wanted for Austin, and he was able to help me and get me this big rock of a thing from China, and I get to do the engraving with his granddaughter, whom I adore. And just the people he put in my life for that season, and now still, that I needed without even knowing. My best friend, she was fire. I couldn't have done it without her either. She was like a rock. And having been blessed with her, so grateful. He gave us dreams, starting with Jasmine. She got the first dream and relayed a message onto me, which I really needed. I could come back to later when there was something that was really upsetting me and I realised that God had already given me the answer to what I was seeking. I got dreams. Austin's best friend got dreams. My dad's had dreams. My brother had a dream. And it's like, he didn't need to do that. And he confirmed for me so many times that he has Austin. And I believe it. And then, human nature goes straight back to thinking, what if I got that wrong? What if, this big thing about suicide, people go to hell? And he showed me, no, that's not the case. And he showed me more than once because he knows that's what I needed at the time. He just always meets you where you are. And at the end of that, like, I was quite happy plodding along doing my own thing before Austin died. I didn't have anyone else to really, I didn't have a partner, so I didn't have to worry about anyone else's feelings. I could come and go as I pleased. I lived pretty simply, enjoyed playing sport. And so I was just quite happy on my own. And it wasn't till later that I thought, no, actually, I don't want to be alone anymore. I want to have a partner. I want to have a husband. And so I gave that to God and I said, I've changed my mind. Please give me somebody. But I also knew that if I was going to be following God, that it had to be a godly man, because otherwise we wouldn't align. And I'll do a whole other video on that. But a year and a month after I buried my son, I got married. And it happened so fast. And it was all God. And I had said to a friend ages ago, before Austin had died, and he had said to me, how do you ever expect to find anybody if you never leave your house? And I joked and I said, he'll find me. And my husband turned up at my door. And beautiful man. And there's this big thing of beauty for ashes in the Bible, that God can turn things around. And I had always thought, how could you ever replace my son? No one can replace my son. I won't even come close. And my husband came with 4 children to previous relationships. And I thought, well, this is going to be hard. There's like 4 different personalities. 3 of them are teenagers. One of them's 5, or turning 5. I thought, this is going to be scary. This could be terrible. And they are so easy. They are so easy to love. And they're beautiful. And they're all different. And I could not have asked for better children. And I just thought, they're saying beauty for ashes. Austin can never be replaced. But man, I'm so lucky to have them. I'm so blessed to have them. And I know my parents felt the same. They never really looked at anyone else's children as like being able to be their grandchildren. It's biological. That's just, they love theirs. But even as my parents met his children, they were blown away. And when my dad had commented that he got 4 new grandchildren, I just knew that this was something special. And so I've come from a place of complete despair to a place of I'm excited for the future. I love my new family. And my life doesn't end just because my son's not here anymore. If anything, it's just really beginning. Yuck, sorry. I was just trying not to sniff and look what I did.